This is the eLearn podcast. If you're passionate about the future of learning, you're in the right place. The expert guests on this show provide insights into the latest strategies, practices, and technologies for creating killer online learning outcomes. My name's Ladek, and I'm your host from OpenLMS. The eLearn podcast is sponsored by eLearn Magazine, your go-to resource for all things online learning. Click-by-click how-to articles, the latest in edtech, spotlight on successful outcomes and trends in the marketplace. Subscribe today and never miss a post at elearnmagazine.com. And OpenLMS, a company leveraging open source software to deliver effective, customized, and engaging learning experiences for schools, universities, companies, and governments around the world since 2005. Learn more at openlms.net. Hello, everyone. My name is Ladek, and my guest for today is Pascal Rosenberger, the co-founder and CEO of Eggheads.ai, a microlearning service that helps learners soak up new business knowledge with interactive and chat-based learning nuggets. In this not-so-micro conversation, Pascal and I talk about what is conversational microlearning, and how does this technique make it easy and engaging for learners to actually acquire new business knowledge, and what are these chat-based learning nuggets? We then talk about how Eggheads.ai works with the help of artificial intelligence and, yes, ChatGPT. Our conversation then moves on to what is the most interesting feedback that Pascal has received in the process of developing his service, and how does he manage incorporating these ideas into the new technology? Then Pascal dives deeper into how Eggheads is another tool that learning professionals can use as a part of their technology suite with the learning management system, with other services, with design tools, etc. And then, as we often do, we end our conversation by having Pascal talk about how AI and all of the surge of attention that's around it right now is going to impact microlearning and what his vision is for the future. And remember, we record this podcast live so that we can interact with you, our listeners, in real time. So if you'd like to join the fun every week on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, just come over to elearnmagazine.com and subscribe. Now, I give you Pascal Rosenberger. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the eLearn podcast. My name is Ladek, as you just heard, and I'm coming to you from OpenLMS. Many times I get that finger wrong. Anyway, that's great. So it's wonderful to have everyone here today, or if you're listening later on our podcast, wonderful to have you with us today. Today, my guest is Pascal Rosenberger, who I just made that sound very American. I know, which is really bad. I'm sorry, but Pascal, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks. I like to respond that way to make it American as well for you too. No, I'm great. I'm awesome. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Nice. Yes, you used awesome in the first 30 seconds of our podcast. That's the way it should be. Pascal, you are the co-founder or the founder of Eggheads. Is that correct?
I'm one of the co-founders.
Okay, one of the co-founders. I you know what? My notes are right behind the screen I'm looking at, and so I just embarrassed myself there. One of the co-founders of Eggheads, that is a conversational microlearning platform. Tell us about, before we dive into the tech and what that's all about, tell us about who you are, where you're sitting, what do we need to know about Pascal and how you got here?
Yeah, happy to do so. I live in Zurich with my family. I have 2 kids, married. My professional background is in communications. I worked in media sector as well. I led communication teams, digital communication and marketing. So this is my professional background. And through our entrepreneurial endeavors, I ended up where I am today. So in this space of learning and still digital communication to some extent.
Yeah. So, tell me how that happened. If you were in digital communications and we're about to talk about conversational microlearning, is this an evolution of something that, you saw happening through forums and chatbots and whatnot, or was this you had a huge aha moment somewhere and you said, you know what, here's a real gap that we need to fill? Like what was the path there?
Actually, it's a combination of both. So it was an evolution with our startup. We started, like many others, with different ideas, and not the first idea was the one that worked best. So, but we tried to crack the market initially. So it was a directory for courses and learning, classroom training in Switzerland. And we tried different ways to crack the market. And one of them was with chatbots. And then we observed, users spend quite some time there. They give us good feedback about the experience and the engagement, and they also share information. And so then we figured, well, the initial idea was to have a chatbot that guides you through a course catalog as a digital course advisor. That's how we called it at that time. But then the idea was like, oh, this could actually work to transfer the knowledge itself. So then, as it was not our first steps as entrepreneurs, we approached it differently. We found partners who believed that this could work. We did an MVP that turned out very well. And from there, we knew, okay, this could be a viable product.
Fantastic. Right on. So let's dive into what it is. Hi there. I'm sorry to break into the show right now, but if you're enjoying this show, if you are challenged, if you're inspired, if you're learning something, if you think that you're going to be able to get something out of this to put into your practice, do me a quick favor. Pause right now and just hit subscribe on your podcast player right now. It doesn't matter which one, just hit subscribe, because that way it'll make sure that you never miss an episode in the future. Thanks. Now back to the show. Like, what is conversational learning? Like, define that for me and tell me how it's differentiated from other types of learning pathways, learning strategies, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in its broadest sense, it's a way of digital learning, e-learning, and specifically microlearning. So it allows you to create bite-sized learning nuggets. And the new approach here is the conversational angle. So basically that means that you can create an experience that's similar to one you have with a coworker or a friend on your business or your private messenger app. So it's like easy as learning as chatting with a friend, you could say.
So have you, I see it's Eggheads.ai. Should we, the elephant in the room, talk about that? Are we comparing ourselves to ChatGPT, or, you were there before, obviously, but is this an AI driven platform, or is it something where you're programming the conversation? It's kind of self-designed, or pre-designed.
That's a very well and very good question. The thing is, we want to make it easy not only for the users to navigate through the content, but also for the creators, so that you can create a 1 or 2 minute learning session in a few hours or even shorter. And the way we can do that, so when we look on the technology level, is when we provide you as our user a chatbot technology that is rule-based. And we figured, in the context of learning, that's 180 degrees different than the context of customer care. What do I mean by that? Like in customer care, you have one problem, you have one question, you want the right response immediately.
Right.
If the AI or the chatbot is good, well done. Quite often, sadly, it's not there yet, most often. But in the learning context, like as a user, I don't know what I don't know, so I want someone that takes me by the hand and guides me through a topic and explains a thing. So that's why these rule-based chatbots, they won't win a prize with stardom on the technology level, but they're very practical, they're very simple, and they allow you to achieve a result in very short time. So that's the product as it is today. As you see, there's the .ai in our URL. So we have ideas and ambitions to integrate artificial intelligence. Up to now, we didn't see a solution that would be economical and also easy and fast to use. Things are changing fast.
Yeah.
We're looking at all the developments and, of course, thinking how we can integrate solutions like ChatGPT, to name the other elephant in the room, how we can integrate them to make the content creation process faster, more convenient. So these are the ideas we have right now. But actually, right now it's very simple. You get a login, you create a scripted conversation where you can add your media, where you can have jumps, for example, and personalized experience that way.
So theorize for me for a second. Is there a way that you've started to consider to bring together, a curated, rules-based pathway, learning journey with an AI-powered, generative engine, so that would that be, creating material on the fly that follows the learner? Or I don't know. You tell me, like, what have you guys theorized around that in terms of, something that is much more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like an AI engine is much more flexible, whereas, a rules-based engine, as you said, you want to get from point A to point Z. Is there a way to connect? I don't know. You tell me. What have you guys been thinking about?
Well, we're talking about visions and ideas and scenarios right now, so it's not about products as it is today,
sure.
Of course, which is part of what we do as entrepreneurs. There are different levels where you could apply AI. The one I mentioned before is like on the content creation side. Another one is like on a journey level, where you would where AI could help to figure out what would be the right next nugget to deliver to that person. So that could be a way. It's also an option, like you can also gather data from your users, like in a poll survey, for example. You ask questions and then you gather that data. One scenario could as well be to analyze that data, bring it into to find out what the common patterns are. So these are kind of the ideas that we are looking at.
Fantastic. Well, then take me back to the product as it stands today. Who are typical users of this, and what does it take to set it up sort of right out of the box when they come and they sign up at Eggheads? Is it what's that process look like? Is it a fairly in-depth? Do I need to schedule out a week of time, a day? Like what do I need to bring to the table to get started and actually have effective learning created?
There's actually quite a broad set of use cases that we observe. On one hand, we're excited about that, to see that there's so much creativity around. On the other hand, like when we think about our own marketing and sales effort, that makes it a bit more challenging because there are different segments that you can potentially address. The type of users that we see are people that want to give a new impulse to their learning and also communication efforts, and that quite often want to refresh knowledge, like that have, for example, their annual compliance trainings, but they say that's not enough. We want people to be aware of all the policies during the year when things could happen. So these are kind of the common denominators, but also like where companies train product knowledge for field sales, for example, insurance. We have customers there. Other customers use it to educate their customers, for example, in the pharmaceutical fields. So actually quite a broad set of use cases. And where it typically starts, we would set up an account for you, and we would be glad to open one for you as well if you want to experiment and play around with it. And of course, that's true for the listeners as well. We would set up an account for you, and then it's like a very simple content management system. You have the fields and the boxes where you fill in your content, where you create what you want to get across. So one of the most common questions is like, how much can I actually say? So the whole format, as with other types of microlearning as well, it's quite focused and bite-sized. So we recommend to focus on one or two key messages and then write such a conversation that refreshes it or explains it or quizzes people or gets feedback around it. And that can take maybe 1 or 2 minutes for the user on the user side. And on the creator side, we hear as a rule of thumb, it's around 1 hour for a minute we hear. And of course you can expand because it's work on content and you can elaborate, use different words and branches. But it allows you actually to be quite fast and agile as well.
And so where, as a learner, am I consuming this? Is this something that my manager would point to? You know, is there an app? Is like, would they say, hey, go to Eggheads and do this? Does it integrate with a, you know, a content system that's already, you know, we have in house? And then like for me, you know, many of our listeners are in the education universe, the higher ed education universe. So is this applicable, or have you found it's applicable in that universe as well?
Yes,
Guess
can
there's
work there
two
as
really
well.
big questions there. Sorry.
So take the easy one first, and then I can
Yeah.
answer it short. So yes, education sector can use it too. How do people experience it or get in touch with it? There are basically two ways. Like one is web-based. That's the most flexible one. So like every chat that you create, every chat-based learning nugget, you get a link, and wherever you can share a link, you can share the chat. So if you have some customers, for example, have a learning experience system, they add the link there. Others create a QR code and project it during their event or somewhere on a website. So these are options where how you can use your own channels. You could also have SMS or email pushes via our platform if you want to use that. Or we also have a Microsoft Teams app that brings this chat-based experience to the Business Messenger by Microsoft. So it really, you can push these nuggets to Teams so people get notified, they can do their chat, a minute or two, and then they're done with the learning for the moment.
Okay, great. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've heard from the clients that you're working with now? Is it, you know, this isn't, you know, the learning isn't enough, or maybe it's too quick. You know, the access doesn't work, you know, isn't working so well. The content isn't in depth enough. Like what are the challenges that, you know, you're currently finding solutions for?
That we find solutions for. Yeah, it means the common ones that businesses expect to see actual change in behavior or mindsets through that training. So the overall, the big goal, we wouldn't go that far and promise that we can solve this entirely, because that would be over-promising from our end, but we believe it can certainly contribute through these short bite-sized repetitions over time that help through this spaced repetition to repeat and refresh. So that's certainly one problem you can tackle if you want to get more out of existing training material also, and follow up and refresh so that the knowledge sticks, and that awareness for compliance topics or security awareness or product knowledge or sales skills or whatever you have stays present all year round. Another thing that's quite obvious is the time and attention spans. People are busy, professionals are busy, back to back in meetings. When do you want to find time there? And that our solution helps you to make you take advantage of short time frames. People can learn where they are, when they are, on their devices that they can take with them, of course. So that's and the attention spans you can tackle because the experience is interactive. You're always part of the conversation. It needs you, because otherwise it wouldn't move on. So it's interactive. It keeps you at it, and you can move forward at your own speed. So this whole interactivity kind of helps that to not only get the attention initially, but also that you can keep it over this short time frame.
Sure. How do you find usually in your clients is it learning managers or learning officers or L&D professionals? How are they recommending that people again consume this in a way that's natural but structured and consistent, right? So is it, again, I'm wondering if you've received feedback, because it would be so easy to binge learn for a Friday afternoon or a Wednesday afternoon where you're just kind of taking all kinds of things in and then forget about it for 3 months, right? So have you found a good place there, or have you received feedback about, hey, here's how we schedule this. This is how we recommend people use it. This is how we remind them, that kind of stuff?
At the current stage, there's not a common pattern or a pattern that will work for every context. Quite common Maybe, well, speaking on averages here is like to have 1 or 2 chats a week, or one chat every 2 weeks. And of course, it depends. Like when we work with someone who's responsible for their topic, be it compliance or security, they say, okay, we cannot be present with that topic 5 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
If you have other topics as well, for example, brand values that you want to reinforce and bring to life, and some product knowledge that you want to bring to life, then you could have more. So that's how you start to play actually with the format and add it to the mix.
So what do I do to get this, again, if I'm trying to think about, you said, insurance is something that you work with. If I'm a large insurance company or something like that, how do I bring this into my universe of learning? Is this another thing I'm bolting on to a learning management system that we already have, or is this just another, it's another tool in the toolbox that I push out to my managers and say, hey, here's another resource? Or what's that kind of integration look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, we build on existing tech, and we don't think that customers start on the green field. So they have tools and systems in place. They have their concepts in place also. So our purpose or our ambition is and goal to integrate into an environment that's already there. Like, of course, on a technical level, like when you use Teams, you can use the Teams app. It's not a new environment. It's not another silo that you have to push people to. It's integrated into their workflow. So, or like with the web-based way, you can integrate it in the systems you have, like the learning management system, the LMS, or just use a simple internal email newsletter tool could also work. So this is how we strive to integrate with what's around on the tool side, so that it's not perceived as something on top, because we have heard from quite a few customers that said, oh, we don't want another mobile app. Mm-hmm. And that's one way to keep things simple to integrate there.
Who's usually creating the learning? Does this sort of, again, continue to evolve the learning universe where it takes it out of the hands of an expert and anyone can create this learning? Are you seeing this pushed down to managers or line managers or even team leaders saying, hey, I'm going to create some quick burst of learning? Or is this, do you see that it's still kind of being owned and held by sort of a chief learning officer or a manager of learning, that kind of thing?
We see both scenarios. Like one customer, for example, they call it even a democratic way of learning. Maybe that's also a Swiss way how to phrase it. They said, okay, we as a central team, we don't have the capacity, time, and the resources to create the amount of content in the quality and speed that the organization requires. That's why we need a tool that we can give to topic matter experts, to team leaders, so that they can create content on their own. So that's one approach, like basically everyone can do it in that organization. Whereas in others, you have it more centralized, where a head of academy, for example, said, okay, I own this tool and I control the content and the topics that we address with it.
What are your top tips for somebody who wants to create conversational microlearning? For somebody who, wants to be effective with this, are there time lengths that you should be concerned about? Is there a way to write prompts? Like what, if I were to say, here's Pascal's top 10 tips for creating conversational microlearning, what are those?
Yeah, like not very specific to the conversational, but like first on a conceptual level, like basically what is the outcome that you're looking for? What do you want people to do or know when it's more related to awareness topics, for example? And from there, things will fall into place. Like when you have a very focused action, for example, you want people to use safe passwords, then you have a very precise target that you want to get across in such a nugget. And then the thing is to make it conversational. That actually means that you have to imagine someone sitting at the other side of the chat. So you start to imagine conversation like we have now between you and me, but you just imagine someone sitting at the other end. So it's a way to put yourself in your users, learners, employees, colleagues' shoes and try to understand where are they, why would this topic matter for them, and how can I make it relatable in a casual and natural way. So that's where you actually start with before you write. Then
one thing that I guess is still missing in the conceptualization in my head is, when I'm designing the learning, am I creating the Q&A as well? Like all of the text is, all of the interaction I'm creating, or is your technology generating some of that? So that, for instance, I can see someone maybe who understands what they want to, the outcome they want to achieve, but maybe they're not the greatest conversationalist. Maybe they're not the greatest wordsmith. What happens in that situation?
Today you would start a conversation with us at first, so it's okay. So that we can help you there, either through resources that we share or through expertise that we've gained. So yeah, this would lead to a conversation with us right now when you feel stuck in the process. But yeah, of course, we try to enable and empower our customers and users before they start to write. Most of them say, hey, I just want to give it a try on my own. And most of them are quite successful with the result they get, whereas others need a bit more support. And yeah, that's fine. Wherever you stand in the process and with your skills, we're happy to help and make you successful there as well.
I'm just kind of trying to wonder, like, how many times, or have you seen where, like I said, like a line manager or somebody puts together one of these and it just completely fails because they just, they aren't the right person to build the learning. Does that happen a lot?
Of course not. Our customers are all successful. I'm exaggerating here. No, of course, on the level of craft, like you mentioned, being a wordsmith, or just knowing how to phrase stuff and tell stories. I mean, that's of course not given for everyone. Yeah. Sometimes you can see it's a skill and needs talent and time to hone it, of course. But it depends. Like, some just produce material that's there to be consumed and thrown away afterward. It doesn't need to be written for eternity like a poem or a novel. So it's kind of more practical content, so that this basically makes it much more accessible and easier to get started. But yeah, we've seen examples where we said, okay, we might have phrased it differently or approached it differently, but if they think it works for them, for our customers, I mean, then the job.
What this is kind of, I'm trying to avoid the word trigger here. Like what it's the genesis in my head, or what is how powerful have you found, or have you seen this across your customer base, where inside knowledge, inside language, jargon, these being able to put that into these does that make it more effective, in this type of context where it could be exclusionary, if you're trying to have a broader base, learning, like something on LinkedIn Learning or something where it's like you're trying to do this really big audience. But if you had a team and you're able to talk in those way, have you found that that's even more effective, where, a manager can put those in there?
Yeah, we've seen there's an example that jumps to my mind, like someone from the field sales department in one of our insurance companies. I mean, he just hit the nerve with the team because he knew where they stood, he knew how they spoke, and and he's part of the team, and he brought their spirit, their culture, their DNA into the conversation, so that they related very well to the audience. So yeah, this can work.
I don't know. I think that would be really cool. Like, I think that's one of the unsung opportunities for, this kind of chat technology and these kinds of micro learning, where it's, you can make it so specific. But then that leads me to my next question is, I feel like much of the internet is a big landfill of garbage, right? Like there's so much that was created, even 6 months ago or 2 years ago, that is now either irrelevant or probably should be taken down. What about in your case, micro learning that is relevant for today and probably for the next quarter or maybe even the next year? How important is it to go back and clean that up or get rid of it or, make space or those kinds of things? Or do we just, are we just now in a world where you just kind of keep moving on?
What we see, it's more the moving on thing. Like it's not that we haven't seen, maybe that depends on our history. We might be too short for that. We haven't seen like these huge libraries built over time where people would go back and rephrase it and reuse them year after year. So it's really this fast, agile, simple approach. Or there's new policy, we need to push it out, or we observe that people don't stick to this process. We need to refresh it. Let's produce it and get out there. So this is actually the gap that we fill with the customers as of today. Not saying that these libraries won't build out over time, just what we see today.
Awesome. Pascal, I'm going to end this conversation with a question towards the future. What do you see, 6 months, 12 months down the line, the near term future in terms of, either big game changers for your business, for conversational microlearning, or, anything that you're excited about that you're developing that you'd like to put on the table here?
Actually, the whole trend is as we see it, is to tap into user behavior and approach people where they are in the way they like most, like to have this user-centered perspective at first. So this is basically what this chat-based approach allows you to do. You can tap into one of the most common user behaviors, which is chat on our smartphone. So, and based on that mindset, you can go deeper on that level and then add different tools like the ones we mentioned before, which will, of course, be enhanced and can be used for certain steps in the process. We believe that they're, speaking of AI, helpful in certain steps rather than to produce like the whole outcome that you would go there and they create me a training for XYZ and then you're done. It can help along the way. It's very impressive, fascinating, but still you need the person that knows how to use it, knows how to put the generated output into context so that you eventually have a product that's solid and that works for people.
Fantastic. Pascal Rosenberger, you are the co-founder of Eggheads.ai, a conversational microlearning platform that anyone in the world can use. You can just go there right now and sign up. Is there any other way that you would like for people to get in touch with you or contact you?
You mentioned sign up on our website. So we're not there yet. If you are interested in trying the tool, we have a free account that we're introducing these days. Please get in touch with me directly. You can hit me up on LinkedIn or via email. I'm sure you'll add this information to the show notes, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening over there in Switzerland to talk with me today. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. I was very glad to be here and enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Ladek.
Thank you again for listening to the eLearn podcast here from OpenLMS. I just wanted to ask one more time, if you enjoyed this show, if you learned something, if you were inspired, if you were challenged, if you feel like, this is something you can take into your practice, please do me a favor. And right now on your podcast player, hit subscribe. That way you're never going to miss a future episode. Also, come over to elearnmagazine.com and subscribe there as well, because we have tons of great information about how to create killer online learning outcomes. Thanks.